I haven't said anything controversial for a while, so it's time to talk about same-sex marriage. And hey, looky here, it's in the news right now. How convenient. And the best part is, I think my opinion on this is right in the sweet spot, where it'll satisfy nobody and annoy everybody at the same time, as I'm kind of riding the fence on this one, yet I am riding it with conviction, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So let's begin with my general opinion on the matter before we get into the nitty-gritty of the case, and of course the realities of this being a United States thing. So, I am, in theory, in a vacuum, not opposed to gay marriage. I think it's fine, and seeing as being married also imbues a couple with certain benefits and advantages, taxing or visiting a sick loved one, etc., I do believe that these are rights and advantages that should therefore be equally handed out to everyone. But a couple of qualifiers. First and foremost, I am for civil marriage. And I'm not opposed to religious marriage, but it cannot be forced. It cannot be something that the church or whatever religious institution you subscribe to is required to do. If you want to get married in the church, then again, I have no principled opposition to it, but you have to find a priest who is actually willing to do it. And if the priest objects, or indeed even if the church objects, then you're shit out of luck, plain and simple, as at that point it becomes a religious matter, not a legal one, in my opinion. You should still be able to get a civil union, mind you. Now, there are moral considerations around this as well, which we will address a little bit later on, as again, gay marriage in a vacuum, separated from the current politics of the world. But before we get to that, let's talk about the specific. Supreme Court formally asked to overturn landmark same-sex marriage ruling. So, same-sex marriage in the United States is not a law necessarily. It's somewhat similar to Roe v. Wade, where it is enforced upon the state by legislative decree in all due essentiality, which is one of the reasons why I don't like the way it's currently being done. As in 2015, the Supreme Court found that same-sex marriage must be allowed according to the Constitution. The 14th Amendment, if memory serves, the clauses on protection and due process? I think. Again, I am hardly an expert on this, but the Supreme Court decreed that no, this is a constitutional matter, thus it is a federal matter, and thus we can override the states' right to choose their own marriage laws. As the states, of course, also claim that no, marriage laws is a state issue, not a federal one. Now, at this point in time, therefore, the same-sex marriages are legal and protected in the United States. But Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis here argues that she should not be required to issue marriage licenses to gay couples because of her religious conviction. We touched upon this already, but this is somewhat different, because on the one hand, I agree that a priest should not be required to marry a gay couple if the priest is like, no, that isn't against my religion, I'm not going to do it, because that is, again, a religious matter. However, here, this woman is, in essence, the human personification of a state rubber stamp. She doesn't exist to bless the couple or engage in some sort of religious ceremony. She simply exists so that the state can go, okay, you two are married, chunk, there you go, out the door. And so I don't think she gets to object, as this is not her personally doing this. She is doing it on behalf of the state, because the state, thank God, is not yet a corporeal entity capable of, rubber stamping paperwork in its own right. And this is also probably why this case is not actually going to go anywhere. And if it does go anywhere, it'll probably be more due to the Supreme Court wanting it to, rather than necessarily the merits of the case on a legal basis. Although, I will say, using the Constitution to legalize same-sex marriage is a stretch. Now, again, I'm hardly a constitutional scholar, but equal protections clause, all of this, it feels somehow incorrect. And if we were to take into consideration the intent of the people who made that constitutional amendment, I do think there is definitely some arguments against it here. But what I would prefer to see then is simply going, okay, using the Constitution for this feels more like legal decree rather than the will of the people, which, as somebody who is in theory in support of same-sex marriage, I also find to be weakening the entire point, as same-sex marriage isn't legal because the majority want it to be legal, it's legal because a bunch of unelected judges with powers until they die have stated that it is legal, and that's it, shut up, peasant. And, as a serf citizen of the European Union, as that is in essence what Norway is at this point, I am a big fan of states' rights to determine this by themselves, so I would like to see it be sent back to each individual state. Now, that then brings up the question of support for same-sex marriage. It was very, very, very high at times. I think the highest was, what was it here? 88% for Democrats, 70-odd% in general, and so on. And right now it is 68% amongst US adults. So the considerable majority are for same-sex marriages, nearly 70%. So even if this was sent back to the states, it seems likely that it would be simply legalized, but the proper way this time, via a majority actual vote rather than legislative decree coming down from the top. Now, Republicans, of course, their support for same-sex marriage has been dwindling rapidly, equally as the Democrat support has been increasing. And this is where we get to the political aspect of this, because, well, here's the thing. Same-sex marriage, again, in a vacuum, I don't have any particular opposition to it, as in fact, I find it preferable. One of the primary arguments against homosexuality is often that it is connected to obscene behavior, something degenerate, and, spending 5 minutes looking at the average gay pride parade certainly seems to reinforce that interpretation rather drastically and violently, doesn't it? But there are obviously just normal gay people who want to get married and who happen to be gay, but in every other respect they're just regular dudes. Not to mention, there are plentiful of straight people with all kinds of violent, deviant fetishes as well. I mean, look at Lum Lum, for example. And thus, so, I don't think that the occasional crazy outliers should ruin this for the rest of the presumed majority, especially again considering the legal advantages that being married does grant someone. But this comes with a little bit of a although. Gay marriage, as it is right now, being enforced by a legislative fiat rather than popular decree, which is again a big problem, has also been championed as a win by the left, who has done more to ruin the image of gay marriage than conservatives and Republicans could ever have hoped to do, as the progressive movement has taken pride, which used to be a very simple and obviously good movement, simply saying, okay, we happen to be gay, but we'd like all the same rights as normal people. Okay, I have no problems with that whatsoever, to, hey there, we're gay and we deserve special privileges on behalf, at the cost of everybody else. I have a problem with that. I have quite a few problems with that, as do a whole lot of people. Even the gays, indeed, look at that and go, could you please shut the fuck up? We just wanted to be like everybody else? Could you just let us have that? And no, because it has become a political tool. It has become a bludgeoning stick with which to beat the opposition, and with things like this being, again, a Supreme Court decision, and with Roe v. Wade, well, it's one of those things that the left does, where they rule by decree rather than by popular acceptance, which is, again, a very large problem at the bottom of all of this. So, I very, very, very much so see the argument that this was a left-wing thing, implemented in a left-wing way. Let's get rid of it, and once we've eradicated all of the things that progressives did in this fashion, we can turn around and face the general populace and go, alright, was there anything of that you actually liked? Should we bring some of it back? And if there then is popular consensus, which at the moment there absolutely is, that gay marriage is a good thing and should be legalized, then, well, fuck, that is the perfect solution. The majority decides. And in this particular case as well, I do think that a lot of the Republicans' negative sentiment around this comes from the LGBTQIAP blah 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 blah, rather than simply just the gay and the bi, etc. So, again, I'm all for it. I don't see a real argument against it, and if we are really considering the degeneracy angle, which again is a valid one, then surely it would be better to encourage the degenerates to get together, have a normal family of 2 people, instead of running homosexual piss orgies. I don't know. Seems preferable to me, at least. So, as a quick summary, I would like to see this overturned. I would like to see it repealed, and I would like to see it sent back to the states for the populace to determine whether or not gay marriage should be legal in the state. And if there happens to be states that don't allow it, well, good. Then all of the people who don't want it can move there. And all of the people who do want it can move to one of the other states. Does that suck? Sure. Is it an imposition? Absolutely. But it is a far larger imposition to impose, well, this upon the entirety of the nation due to the decision of like a dozen individuals wearing silly robes. That's my opinion on that matter. Do let me know what you think in the comment sections down below, as I think this one could be contentious. And until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.